What up, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, up in this piece, and it's time for yet another episode of Hater Outdoors. Hater Outdoors coming at you. It's a really nice day. Finally, the weather's getting a little bit bearable because it's been too hot of a summer, if you ask me. Today's video is going to be about a lost art. The lost art of broadly getting over, but more importantly and more specifically, the lost art of cutting an electrifying promo. Now, one of you said in the comments, and I wholeheartedly agree, that the last time that there was a good person capable of doing an excellent promo was Enzo Amore. How you doing? You know what I'm saying? That's definitely true. Anybody that remembers Enzo Amore and Big Cass knows that Enzo Amore was excellent at promos, right? He seldom didn't get the crowd to lose their minds. He almost always got a huge pop, and he was objectively funny. Now, beyond the fact that he was just good at promos, we have to consider all the hard work that he did in making these promos. There is an interview out there with Simon Gotch. Remember him? Almost nobody does, right? And Simon Gotch says how Enzo Amore sucks, basically, right? And that one of the examples that Simon Gotch gives is that Enzo Amore would have to write his promos down. And Simon Gotch was like, I don't have to write promos down. I have them in my head. I can just go off the cuff. Well, considering that Simon Gotch has never cut a memorable or compelling promo, clearly we can establish from this little anecdotal evidence the reality that it's very, very obvious that one needs to work on their promos, right? You have writers, but if you can write your own promo, even better, right? It's better to go out there prepared, rehearsed, etc. After all, this is a show. A lot of people still operate under this understanding that wrestling is this like improv situation, right? None of that should be relevant, right? Similarly, on the other side of the coin, I saw a mini interview, or it was a clip from an interview of John Morrison with Chris Van Vliet. And in the interview, they talked about Logan Paul. And basically, Van Vliet was like, don't you think Logan Paul is great? And Morrison says, well, I've never seen someone who's had more rehearsed matches than Logan Paul. And it got me thinking, it's like, okay, great. Maybe Logan Paul isn't as good as John Morrison or Gunther, who apparently is really good at this, at going off the fly, right? But so what? We're not judging them based on that. That's an irrelevant ability, right? If you can prepare for 6 months, but put on an excellent match, right? That's better than not rehearsing at all and putting on a mid-match. Now, granted, John Morrison is an excellent wrestler, one of my favorites, and honestly very, very underrated. But nevertheless, the point stands, right? Why wouldn't someone take the opportunity to rehearse their craft and get better at it and choreograph it and rehearse it and prepare ad nauseum until they are able to do it in front of a live audience? This seems to be the correct method. Now, of course, if you have someone like The Rock, let's say, right? And The Rock has the ability to improvise, or John Cena, that's obviously better, right? But they should also, and I'm sure they did, rehearse, right? Now, if you're excellent at something, like if you are just a premier athlete, a premier charismatic guy, and you can do this without thinking, that's ideal. But if you're not, then you can become Simon Gotch, or you can become Enzo Amore. And I think everyone who has honesty in their soul knows that Enzo Amore was better than Simon Gotch. Nobody cares that Simon Gotch can do a wrist lock, right? Because the wrist lock is never going to get someone over, right? Look at Nathan Frazier. He does all sorts of crazy things. Look at Ricochet. Nobody ever cared about any of these guys, right? Because they're not entertaining. So, how does someone become entertaining? Well, that's the topic of this video, right? Cutting amazing promos. We can look at Enzo Amore's career and his promos that electrify the audience. The audience comes alive when they hear Enzo Amore's music and they see his entrance. Now, entrances to me are unnecessary, right? Like they're boring, usually. But Enzo Amore, and by extension Big Cass, understood that the entrance can be an opportunity to hype someone up. They're not the first to do this, like The Rock's entrance, Stone Cold. Like they did things that were consistent and that would hype the crowd up. But part of that was also like their booking and their just general excellence at what they do. Enzo Amore just is basically a hype man. He just gets out, he's like sprinting left and right like Mick Jagger in a Rolling Stones concert, and the crowd can't help but be energized by the energy that Enzo Amore is bringing to the table, right? Now, if you compare that, let's say, to the entrance of Lyra Valkyria, just for the hell of it, let's use that, right? Lyra Valkyria, she just comes out and she does a little pose and then smiles or frowns, depending on whether she's a face or a heel, right? And this format can be used for every wrestler. Bayley, same thing. She smiles and hugs kids when she's face, and she doesn't smile and doesn't hug kids when she's not a face, right? When she's either a tweener or a heel. And none of this is compelling, right? The importance of the entrance is to get the crowd invested and excited in two things. Number one, the person performing the entrance, and number two, on whatever the hell that person is going to do next, right? You can take an entrance like Goldberg's, for example, right? His entrance is a different paradigm, right? The whole point is he's backstage, they knock on his door, like basically he's ready, he's dialed in, he's focused, right? He doesn't know when it's time to be ready. Someone has to tell them, it's time for you to do your 3 minutes of work and kick someone's ass, right? And he comes out, stoic, right? Then the pyro goes off and he does like the little combo thing that he does, the shadow boxing combo, right? And you know immediately, you're like, shit, somebody is gonna get their ass kicked, right? Some wrestlers have the luxury of being able to do that because of their size or their personality or whatever, right? Other wrestlers have to work harder on this, right? You look at someone like Drew McIntyre, he just comes out, right? He just comes out. Kevin Owens, he literally just comes out. Sami Zayn, he dances, and that's a step in the right direction, but doesn't even do that anymore. Now he's just basically always hyped. But he's not very exciting otherwise, so nobody cares, right? With all that being said, if we look at Enzo Amore, let's go to his promos now, right? His promos were amazing. First of all, they're tailored to the situation and or the opponent that he's going to be dealing with, right? He doesn't just cut the same promo. Like a lot of people think that he's just another Road Dogg. But Road Dogg didn't really say anything. Road Dogg never really cut promos. Road Dogg did the little, you know, the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, which was awesome, right? But it's not really a promo because he doesn't say anything about anybody else. Periodically, they'd be like, and if you don't like the Atlanta Hawks, if they're in Atlanta or something, they got 2 words for you, right? But everybody was dialed in. And Road Dogg is considered to be very charismatic because he is very charismatic. And, you know, the Enzo Amore Big Cass situation is very parallelable, right? Or can be paralleled, I should say, with, you know, the New Age Outlaws. But that's where the similarities end. Enzo Amore is out there roasting people, roasting his opponents, saying clever things, and more importantly, doing it with a certain level of charisma that gets the fans excited. Comedy is a big part of that, right? Because he'll say things like, I'll drop you like a deuce, right? And people are like, haha, that's funny. They laugh, they're excited. The combination of that makes them cheer, right? And then, of course, another lost art. This merits its own video, and it will get one. But the catchphrase, right? The catchphrase, that's going to be a whole video that's going to come out after this, probably tonight as well. But basically, the idea is you need catchphrases, right? I won't delve too deep into that because, like I said, I'm doing another video on it. But the idea is you have to get the fans invested, right? Nowadays, no wrestler seems to care about that, right? The new format is the wrestler comes out and they pretend there is no crowd. And once in a while, they might acknowledge the crowd. And even within this situation, right, you see like the success that CM Punk has had throughout his career. The only difference between, let's say, CM Punk and, I don't know, Seth Rollins, right? The only difference is that CM Punk often acknowledges the crowd. That's the only difference between him getting a bigger pop than Seth Rollins, right? Most wrestlers don't acknowledge the crowd, right? They operate under the rules of Lucha Underground, where basically everything is just a story and the fans are just viewers. But the fans are not just viewers. The fans are a very important and very interactive element of the whole wrestling, and more specifically in this case, WWE experience, right? That is one of the few advantages that World Wrestling Entertainment, and to a lesser extent AEW, have over other sports. The context of the arena, right, is such that it's a lot of people, right, with usually good acoustics, and the fans play along, right? The fans are an important element, more so than in any other sport. Like in football or basketball or soccer, sometimes they'll do chants, but those are boring and inconsequential, right? Generally speaking, the fans are relegated to just cheering and booing, right? And maybe they'll say things like boom, boom, defense in basketball and things like that. But it's mostly this passive experience. So the football players have no interest really in interacting with the fans. Sometimes they do, and those moments often go viral. But they don't have to because they're playing a real sport. They have to focus on playing the sport. Like if you take Cooper Kupp, let's say, he's the first wide receiver that came into my head. Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. Their role is go out there, line up on the line, someone says hike, the ball gets snapped, and now your job is to run like we told you to run. And then, if the ball is thrown to you, catch the motherfucker and go score a touchdown, right? That's it. Nobody cares. The NFL, the Chargers, the Dolphins, nobody cares whether or not Tyreek Hill connects to the fans or not, right? That's never been a consideration in any other sport, even though that does have some sort of bearing on, jersey sales and things like that, right? They don't care about that because they care about more important things like winning the sporting contest, right? In wrestling, there is no sporting contest. So, as a result, caring about the fans and interacting with the fans becomes the most important part of the entire wrestling program. The match, the promo, the backstage segments, right? Like, you can have someone like Karrion Kross come out there and he just cuts a promo on Xavier Woods. What's the best part of the promo? When he says, Austin, quiet, or whatever, right? And basically then the fans lose their mind. That was a good highlight of the otherwise shitty career of Karrion Kross, right? He understood that, at least for that moment, that he's like, I can get a reaction out of the crowd. And that makes the situation more interesting, right? And as a result, that opens up new opportunities, hopefully. So with all that being said, I think I've made my point. We need more charisma, like I've been saying for weeks now, but more importantly, we need promos, right? We cannot know, we'll never know, motherfuckers. Who will ever know whether Ricochet could or could not cut a promo? They never let him cut a promo. And when they did, they're like, go out there and say, I'm going to win. So he's like, I'm going to win. And then he gets his ass whooped. People are like, I can't believe they're burying Ricochet. Well, why shouldn't they, right? You need to, like, in this day and age, the way that people get put over is only by booking, right? Nobody, virtually no one, except maybe LA Knight, right? But he's not on the level of Enzo Amore. But maybe LA Knight is the closest thing we have in modern wrestling of someone getting themselves over, right? If LA Knight didn't get himself over, he would be released, or he would be like the fourth member, or the third member now, of Alpha Academy or something, right? Nothing would come of this. That's why they made him Max Dupree, and they put him with Maxine Dupree. They're like, all right, now you're this, right? And then he was like, all right, like, that's not gonna work out. They quickly switched it back because they realized, someone, maybe Triple H, realized, oh, this guy's got something to offer us that goes beyond what he can do in the ring, right? He's actually good at wrestling and good at promos. So with that being said, I think I've made my point. Take care, cucks.